From an anthology, this is the 16th century, an introduction, page 551. So, it says here, let me see. Elizabethans were certainly capable of admiring plainness of speech. In King Lear, Shakespeare contrasts the severe directness of the virtuous Cordelia to the glib and oily art of her wicked sisters. And such poets as George Gascoigne, Thomas Nash, and in the early 7th century, Ben Jonson wrote restrained, aphoristic, moralizing lyrics, a plain style whose power depends precisely on the avoidance of richly figurative verbal pyrotechnics. This power is readily apparent in the wintry spareness of Nash's A Litany of Time in Time of Plague, with its grim refrain. Wit with his wantonness tasteth death's bitterness. Hell's executioner hath no ears for to hear. What vain art can reply? I am sick, I must die. Lord, have mercy on us. Here the linguistic playfulness beloved by Elizabethan culture is scorned as an ineffectual vain art, to which executioner death is utterly indifferent. Here in another plain style poetry, the somber lapidary effect depends on a tacit recognition of the allure of the suppleness, grace, and sweet harmony that the dominant literary artists of the period so assiduously cultivated. Poetry, writes Puttenham, is more delicate to the ear than prose, because it is more current and slipper upon the tongue, i.e., flowing and easily pronounced, and withal tunable and melodious as a kind of music, and therefore may be termed a musical speech or utterance. The 16th century was an age of superb vocal music. The renowned composers William Byrd, Thomas Morley, John Dowland, and others, scarcely less distinguished, wrote a rich profusion of madrigals, part songs for 2 to 8 voices unaccompanied, and airs, songs for solo voice generally accompanied by the lute. These works, along with hymns, popular ballads, rounds, catches, and other forms of song, enjoyed immense popularity, not only in the royal court, where musical skill was regarded as an important accomplishment, and in aristocratic households, where professional musicians were employed as entertainers. And also in less exalted social circles. Okay, so we'll read another poem here. This is a nice poem. That time of year thou mayest in me behold, when yellow leaves, or none or few, do hang upon those boughs which shake against the cold, bare ruined choirs, where late the sweet bird sang. In me thou seest the twilight of such day, as after sunset fadeth in the west, which by and by black night doth take away, death's second self that seals up all in rest. In me thou seest the glowing of such fire, that on the ashes of his youth doth lie, as the deathbed whereupon it must expire, consumed with that which it was nourished by. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. So that was a nice poem. This was a Shakespeare sonnet 73. Yet the multiplication of figures was a source of deep-rooted pleasure in rhetorical culture. Most of the greatest Renaissance writers used it to extraordinary effect. Consider, for example, the succession of images in Shakespeare sonnet 73. Here becomes a subtle, poignant amplification of the perception of decay through the succession of images from winter or late fall to twilight to the last glow of a dying fire. Each of these images in turn sensitively explored, so that, for example, the season is figured by bare boughs that shiver as if they were human, and then these anthropomorphized tree branches in turn are figured as the ruined choirs of a church where services were once sung. No sooner is the image of singing in a church choir evoked, and these singers are instantaneously transmuted back into the songbirds when an earlier season had sat upon the boughs, while these sweet birds in turn conjure up the poet's own banished youth. And this nostalgic gaze extends at least glancingly to the chancels of the Catholic abbeys, reduced to ruins by Protestant iconoclasm and the dissolution of the monasteries. All of this within the first 4 lines. Here and elsewhere, Shakespeare, along with other poets of his time, contrives to freight the small compass and tight formal constraints of the sonnet, 14 lines of rhymed iambic pentameter. Its remarkable emotional intensity, psychological nuance, and imagistic complexity. The effect is intensity, psychological nuance, and the effect is what Christopher Marlowe called infinite riches in a little room.